preparing to research your topic. Research consists of 3 phases: preparing for the search, gathering the information, and evaluating the information you've found. Step 1 is preparing for the search. When you're about to do research, it's always good to develop a clear research plan, and in that plan you should identify background information and what you already know about your topic, how you found out that information, and possible sources for research information. What you already know. To start, brainstorm words and phrases that you associate with your topic, and then write out a summary for each word and phrase giving details about its relevance to your topic. This is an important step in the research process because it helps you to get an idea of how much you already know about your topic and how much more in depth you need to go with your research. It also helps you to decipher if the information that you know is actually relevant to what you are specifically researching, how you found out about it. It's also important to pinpoint how you learn that information. I think you should ask yourself questions like, did I read this online? Did we discuss it in class? Did I hear a story about it on the radio or TV? Did I find it through social media? A lot of times what you already know has been acquired from multiple of these sources. It's also really important that you do this part of the research plan, identifying what you already know, and then determining where you found it at, because it helps you to determine or recognize if there were any biases in any of the information that you found. That way, when you go into the research process, you have an idea of maybe biases that you can avoid, or you need to dive deeper into the research topic in order to have a better perspective of the topic as a whole. Identifying multiple perspectives and sources. So, as you begin your research, it's very important that you seek multiple perspectives, even if those viewpoints counter your own opinion. Identifying a full range of perspectives challenges your assumptions, gives you an idea of what kind of resistance you may face from your audience, and it makes you an overall more credible speaker. To find a wide variety of sources, ask yourself questions like, who might be knowledgeable about the topic, what organizations address the topic, and what events are happening related to the topic. If you are unable to identify any clear sources using these questions, have no fear, there are more ways to find research material. Step 2, gathering your information. So let's say that those questions that you ask yourself don't quite pan out and you didn't gather a lot of information. Don't worry, there are a variety of resources available and many ways to access those sources. A few types of sources we'll be discussing today are primary sources, secondary sources, internet-based resources, library-based resources, and research interviews. First, let's talk about the difference between a primary and a secondary source. A primary source is where the author expresses their own original ideas or their own original findings from research. An example of this could be a letter from a soldier during World War II describing the events he's seen and experienced firsthand. A secondary source, on the other hand, is somebody else's interpretation or adaptation of a primary source. So they take a primary source and they kind of gather information based off of it, but they never really experienced it for themselves firsthand or gathered the research material themselves. An example of this could be a textbook that just describes World War II. There are many internet resources available, and this has become a super popular way to find research material because we are becoming a more technology-based world. It's just easy to find information on the internet. A few internet-based resources include meta search engines, which compile the results from other search engines. A few examples of this are Dogpile, Info.com, MAMA, SatMeta. These can be good when you're first starting research because they can help you get an idea of maybe a more specific area within your topic that you'd like to research. The downside with meta search engines is they're not very specific. They're kind of broad because it is compiling results from a lot of other search engines. A search engine, on the other hand, is a sophisticated software program that hunts through documents to find those associated with particular keywords. Keywords are the terms associated with your topic that you use to search for information related to your topic. So it's really important that the keywords you use are relevant and very specific to help you find specific articles within search engines that you can use for research. A few examples of search engines are Ask, Bing, Google, and Yahoo. Web directories is another type of internet resource. It's also known as a search index. This is an online list that organizes web pages by categories. So this can also be really good because it has everything super organized into the different categories. But once again, I feel like this one is a little bit more broad than a search engine because you're just looking at an overall category. You're not able to actually go in and get down to the specifics. A few examples of web directories are Galaxy.com, Open Directory Project, www Virtual Library. It's also really important that when you're using internet resources, you check the source's relevance. Its relevance is how closely the web page's content relates to the keywords you use when searching. If you don't even look at the article and you just save it right away as one of your sources, you could have looked up something and the article could be about something completely different that just happens to relate to your keyword. So it's very important to make sure that your sources are all relevant to your research topic. Because we are such a technology-driven world, a lot of times students do forget about the library resources that are available, such as books. Books are a very credible resource. They go through an entire publishing process, peer-reviewed, so the credibility is not in question. But some of the information can be outdated. So if you're going to use books, that is a really good route to go. You just need to make sure that your information is not out of date. Journals, magazines, and newspapers is another. But these are a little bit better than books in that they are published at regular intervals, which means they can sometimes provide you with the most current information about your topic. Another type is a government publication. This includes topics that are addressed by the U.S. government. These can be some really credible sources, especially when you're getting into topics that the government addresses regularly. You can get really good opinions from really good politicians about things through what the government publishes. Reference works are materials such as maps, atlases, encyclopedias, and dictionaries. And lastly, there are non-print resources available at libraries. Non-print resources include audio, multimedia sources such as speeches or recordings.